I'm here with my good friend Andy Murphy. He's a mindset coach, or would you like to introduce yourself better?
Hey, I can if you want. I'm a mental performance expert, trainer, and mentor. There you go. Nice and official now.
That's really great. And we're gonna dive deep into the topics of mindset and how does that can influence and impact your life in relationships, in business, in spirituality, in finances. So
Love it.
how has that impacted your life first? Like going into this aspect of the works of the mind.
Yeah, it's a strange ride. You know what I mean? Because and it's awesome that we're doing this, by the way, Nikki. It's cool. It's cool. We get to hang out. I love it. I love it. So it's an interesting ride. I mean, I come from originally Liverpool in the UK. I've been away a long time now. I'm old, so I've been away 19 years now. And it was funny when you look at where I'm from. I come from a very working class background. You know, like when you think of school, not that school taught me anything. I always say martial arts taught me everything. But school is talking about mindsets, right? Talk about a mindset. A mindset is different ways to look at this. A mindset is a view or a perspective of the world. Okay, so we can have different views of the world, and we also kind of there's mindset, there's peak mindsets, and there's alter egos, for example, right? So a mindset is a general view of something, general view of something. If we looked at moving into like sports or business or what you're talking about, something specific, that's called an alter ego. So it's like a hat that we put on, a role that we play, which is part of us. But it's like the version of you that sees a client is not the version that goes on a date. It's not the version of you that does business. It's not. They're all very different versions of us. It's roles that we put on, hats that we play, right? So that's the difference between mindset in general, peak performance, and alter egos. So when we looked at the UK, for example, that has a mindset, right? A general perspective of it's negative, it's downtrodden, it's limited. There's no opportunities there. People are very in the working class 9 to 5 world. Very see the world a very certain way, and they don't see opportunity. They don't see growth. They don't think that they can do anything different. They feel they're separate from people who are successful, rich, or happy, right? Generally, the world's like this, but very specifically in the UK. So when I lived there all those years ago, there wasn't many options for life, you know. So you could be an electrician, you could be a plumber, you could go and work in a factory, or you could go in the military. I'm not joking. There's basically your options, right? So guess what everyone's life is? That's a mindset, right? It's all the same, right? People are thinking, feeling, acting the same. The neurology has been built the same. The chemicals that are getting pumped into their brain are the same. Their view of the world is the same, right? Very limited. So when somebody tries to stand out or be authentic or do something different with their life, guess what happens? They're not allowed. They're the weirdo. They're the freak. They'll do something different. Everyone gets teased, right? In Australia and New Zealand, they call this the tall poppy syndrome. Have you heard of that one before?
No, but it sounds really fun.
Yeah, let me explain it. Let me explain it. You get it. But it's like you've got the grass, all the same, right? And then this beautiful poppy grows out the grass, stands out, right? Everyone's looking at it, nicely shiny, get in the sun. Then the lawnmower comes along, chops it right down. So, yeah, exactly, right? So it becomes like everybody else. And that's sad. It's sad because people then feel frustrated and they don't feel like they're never fulfilled, right? In anything that they're doing ever. So 19 years ago, I left. So this is where I found a different world. And I was in Sydney in Australia. And I just left. I didn't have a job, didn't know anyone. I just packed my bags and bounced over to the other side of the world. And that's, yeah, it's a good choice. I loved it. So Sydney's, by the way, if you've never been to Sydney, everyone, including you, need to go to Sydney. Sydney's amazing. Aussie's a special place. It's
I'll go for sure. Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. Maybe not right now because the world's in a little chaos, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it's such a cool place. But I landed in Sydney, and that's where I found something. That's where I found sales. Mm-hmm. That's where I found high-level mentorship, and that's where I found something called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And we were selling investment real estate, and it reprogrammed me to see life a different way. And I became the top performer in the country inside of 6 months, and then I got headhunted to New Zealand with a group of us, and I became the top person in New Zealand. And I say this for a reason. I got bored. I was like 26, got bored, and I was putting together. Long story short, I went and found a business partner, and we put together a project to build a resort in Fiji. We took it over to Dubai. We were selling it down next to the Palms, Dubai Land, all this crazy stuff years ago, 2007. 2007. Yeah, long time ago. I told you I'm old. And then everything was going great. We came back to New Zealand. Everything was kicking ass. And then 2008 happened, which was the last crash. And my business partner thought it was an awesome idea to steal all my money, which was also my dad's money. And lied to me, watched me go through bankruptcy, watched me go through a nervous breakdown, watched me lose investment real estate, watched me lose everything.
The whole
and I went from having, what's that?
The whole hero's journey, the part of like the villain.
Exactly. Exactly. And then that was where I was also full of ego because it was insecurity. So what happened was I lost everything and then basically was living and training with MMA fighters. And I was living in there, I was just training and fighting and being crazy, which was fun, but it's not fun when you can't afford rent and food. And then what happened was as I watched my BMW being taken away, which I thought was very important back then, and it got taken away from me. And I was watching it outside the window to go. And I was like, damn, okay. Little voice kicks in, intuition kicks in. Okay, so Andy, now what? This is now what? You know you're good at what you do. You've seen over 2,000 people face to face. You know you're good at what you do. Now what? And here's the key thing I want people to hear. This little statement came blasting through my head, and it was, "This is just where you are. It's not who you are."
Yeah.
And that was such a profound little thing that came into my head, and it changed everything because that's made me take action. That pain's a beautiful thing. People try and stay away from it. I'm all about pain, right? Because pain means that you've got to make change. Because if you keep putting your hand on the fire, how long does it take before you have a permanent scar and wound? Not long. So you've got to use that pain to push away from and then lean in towards where you're going. So, cut a long story short, I turned down a job in Hong Kong to work for one of the largest real estate developers and instead listened to my intuition and borrowed money and flew to LA for 5 days from New Zealand to go to a seminar.
Oh, wow. You're like, I'm my friend, man.
Yeah, right? And then once I was there, I knew exactly what my path was. So I came back to New Zealand, I trained up and had an amateur MMA fight, and then I flew back to LA. And that's where I rebuilt my career. So I went from sales and investment real estate, which I used to help people set up departments up, work with CEOs and And all of that got taken away from me. And then I moved into performance-based. Performance-based meaning that I help people. So instead of selling to people, now I help people. And I've been doing that for 14 years, 15 years now. So I told you I'm old. So what happened is that's what took me into a whole new world. So I took all of my NLP knowledge and then I became obsessed. And when I switch that obsession on, it's an obsession. So that means I took my level so fast to such a high level that I started working with professional fighters in LA.
Yeah.
And I was working with a martial art called Krav Maga, which was connected with LAPD, FBI, Hollywood, all of this. So I was working with the top guys in the world there. I was training with them, but I was also helping them. And that opened up all the doors in LA. So that's where I started working with entrepreneurs, world champions, Hollywood producers, actors, everything you can imagine, even royalty. And that was how I built myself with a new mindset, right? So what I explain in life, everything goes in stages, everything moves in chapters. It's like a book or a movie, right? Everything moves in chapters. What happens is people get stuck reading the same chapter again and again and again. Why? Because they like it. It's nice. It's a nice chapter. It's got a good story, right? So why wouldn't you want to keep reading that, right? They keep reading it. But what they don't understand is there's another chapter to move to. There's another book to read. There's another movie to watch. But people get stuck doing the same thing again and again and again. And I have this rule. If I'm still doing the same thing as it was last week, I'm not moving forward. But most people keep doing the same thing as they were last week because that's what they think they're supposed to do. But when like you and me can talk on a spiritual level and a deeper level, I come from like pure neuroscience, NLP, all of this stuff, the structure of the brain, redesigning the unconscious mind, changing brain chemicals, resetting nervous systems. All of this is what I do for somebody who's a very high performer, who's launching a business, scaling a business, doing IPO, business mergers, all of this stuff. This is who I work with. People who run in $200-300 million businesses, or people who've got an idea they want to get onto the world. But that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, it's a very different thing, right? Behind the scenes, my life is about frequency. It's about maintaining heart, brain, and I can talk about the neuroscience around that in a moment if you want. It's about being in control of my focus. What chemicals are being produced in my brain depending on what mind muscle or software or neurology I want to fire up. It means being in constant connection with my intuition, so I'm constantly guided to see clarity on that bigger picture. So all of these things that I'm doing now, they're important, but they're not really important because the mission is so big. And that all comes from your intuition and guidance system. It all comes from truth. But if I came to the people that in general I work with, they wouldn't understand that. Just like a lot of people probably listening in your world right now are going, what are you talking about? Everything's frequency and vibration. What are you talking about? Science and the brain and all of this nonsense. Right?
Yeah.
They're both worlds. Right? You have to put them together to become successful. So these days in marketing, what happens is everyone teaches a new skill set. Logical skill set, how to tweak, how to optimize, how to launch products and services and all the rest of it. Is that important? Yeah, it's damn important, right? But as you're going through that growth, what's going to happen? You're going to hit ceilings, you're going to hit blocks, you're going to hit traumas, you're going to hit things that hold you back, you're going to hit resistance, you're going to hit lack of belief systems, you're going to hit all these things that create limits around you. So what's the other side of the coin? Mental performance.
Yeah.
How to master every single moment that's being played in your head and how to design it so it becomes automatic, so you become who you want to become in the future. Now, that means you see the world a different way. That means your belief about what's possible, about yourself, the future, the scalability, the business, the speed, totally different. It affects your attitude to getting these small tasks done with the logical world, right? It's getting tasks done. It affects how you value yourself, your future, your product, your money, your resources. It affects how we talk to ourselves in the moment under the most intense pressure. That's having mental performance. So if you've got mental performance and you've got skill set, that's a great combination to launch, right?
I see that.
Then if we add the spirituality, the frequency, the universe, if we add heart-centeredness, if we add vibration, if we add all of these other things and connections to source, then that's a triangle. And if you've got all of those things, 3 things dialed in, that creates success in every area of your life. I believe if you've got one thing dialed in, it's great, you're going to do well, but you're not going to live your potential. And we're here on earth, I really believe, so everyone's such a different path. Everyone's such a unique experience of the world, right? There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad. It's just that we're living on our unique journey. The challenge becomes is that most times right now, and that's why I love you, Nikki, because you're just you. Like, it's just you. Unapologetic, fingers to everybody, you're just you. You know what I mean? It's badass though. It's badass. And this is you. But the challenge becomes, as you'll know, because you're on social media, is that success has been predetermined for us.
Yeah.
Happiness has been predetermined for us. So success before the internet, well, what was it? It was more from the books we watched, the movies that we saw, and also how we wanted to live life. Well, now it's like, what's a flex? Having a Lambo, right? Having a Lamborghini is a flex these days, right? It's like Gucci bags or Hermes bags is a flex. And it's, if you don't have these cars, these houses, this way of dressing, this look, and this way of experiencing the world, then you aren't successful, right?
It's like so old. It's like, that's
it's
what you have.
so,
Yeah.
so boring, right? And it doesn't mean that those things aren't cool if you want them, but here's the difference. Getting them to make you feel cool is very different to being cool and awesome and then getting them because you want them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big difference. You know what I mean? I'm not saying those things aren't awesome, because they are, right? They're cool. Everyone would fly first class if it was free.
Yeah. I think
you know what I mean?
Yeah. What I want to add is,
yes,
mainly in the spiritual community, and even I hit that roadblock. There was a point where I was, you know what? Those things don't matter. And then it's like going to the other side of the spectrum, and it's also kind of bypassing and like, why make a difference between the material stuff and the spiritual world when we live in a material world and it's all the same? And that's why I love your approach, because it's like, yes, let's use the spiritual realm, the frequencies, the energy, but let's use the mindset too. Let's use the material world. Let's not suppress our desires and our potential so it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it's like, instead I believe that I representing an aspect of the collective have that, oh, it's not spiritual to have all this stuff. Why not? Fuck it. Like, why you have to like be on one side of the spectrum? Let's just express ourselves, and it's so beautiful to expand and change our ways of being as we hit these new ceilings, as you mentioned. It's like an aspect of the nervous system cracks, and then it's like, oh, what else is possible? And it's just ever changing. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And that's cool. Yeah. And shut me up, by the way. I can just keep going and talking. So you got to shut me up and jump in. Seriously. This is your show. It's your show. It's you know, you can tell I do podcasts and stuff, right? So, but look at that. Let's talk about what you just said, because it's badass what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced this in Bali. I experienced this in San Diego, and I've lived in both. And people then form an identity around ego identity, right? Mm-hmm. Identity around being spiritual.
Yeah.
Just like someone forms an identity around being a multimillionaire or whatever, CEO or whatever it is. People form an identity around spirituality, which makes me laugh. And the other thing that makes me laugh is that people talk about, and this is very controversial what I'm about to say, but I like to be controversial because most people are full of shit. So it's talk about plant medicine, for example, right? I'm a big believer in plant medicine and everything else, shamanic with plant medicine, shamanic without plant medicine. And the thing about that is that's a big buzz thing right now, right? Well, I found about DMT. I found out about that 19 years ago. And by the way, that was going in Terence McKenna in the 60s and 70s. So it's not a new thing, right? And in the Amazon, they've been doing this thing for how many thousands of years? It's not new. But now it's become an identity, right? So, and what people do is they talk about ego death, right? And maybe you spoke about this before, and I am being controversial with this, but plant medicine is not going to create an ego death. Let me explain why. Because if you had an ego death, you would transcend out of this dimension and out of this planet. Because that's the whole point. That's why we're here. And in this three-dimensional world, we are bound by our ego. Our ego is like our leg or our arm. It's a part of us. It's being able to understand how to use it or not use it. We can't kill this thing, right? Or we shouldn't kill this thing. Because the ego, another way to look at it is it's a defense mechanism to always keep us safe. And if we understand what that is, we would stand on the edge of a cliff, right? And our ego might make us jump over, but ego also might make us feel safe and stay still. But that's a defense mechanism, right? So if we understand what the ego truly is, then we can't kill it. We can detach from it. We can disconnect from it, right? But there's a difference. There's a difference. So with this plant medicine thing, right? As someone who's had an ego death, and again, I'm not challenging anyone, but I'll challenge everyone. It's like, you haven't had an ego death. No, you haven't. You haven't had an ego death. Watch their reaction. 90% of them go, yes, I have. Right, so you just proved to me that you haven't, because you reacted that way, right? Exactly. So if you had an ego death, you give it, I love you. I love that perspective. That's beautiful. That's the difference, right? So people create these identities around everything in the life, everything in the world. Yeah. And as long as we understand that we are only, classic saying, we are only doing the best with the information or tools we have at the time. And if we understand that, life goes in chapters, different books, right? We can only see what we can see is what we know. In quantum physics, they call this flat plane. Flat planes mean we're living in a two-dimensional world. Let me explain. So when we can look at a dog, we can see their programming, right? We understand what they're going to do, their habits. We can really understand a dog, right? But a dog can never understand us. Well, as we increase in frequency and vibration and hit higher dimensions to connect it to our higher self, understand that this version of us can never understand what this version sees. This version, we can only understand what this sees, right? So to have an identity or an opinion that's determined, or a strong belief about anything, what's that about, right? It doesn't really make sense, because you're only seeing the world as you're seeing it now. You're not seeing it from this higher place. So a statement I always say is, we get what we're ready to receive, right? We get what we're ready to receive in every aspect. So there's a reason that when I was young, I didn't earn that level of money, because 100% I'd be dead. I'd have partied my ass off. I'd have drove a car off a cliff. I'd have done something insane. I was crazy. I'm a little crazy now, but not like that. And you know, so that's why I always say we get what we're ready to receive. And nothing that you don't know, nothing that you don't teach. And again, shut me on, Nikki, because I'll keep talking.
I love it.
But I believe like frequency is like a rainbow, and something we definitely both have in common is we follow and really truly believe Hawkins' consciousness scale, right?
Love
so, everything, right? It's everything. It really is. The guy was like a genius, in so many ways. And one of the things that I love about this frequency chart is I add to this. It's like a rainbow, right? From dark to light. And I really believe we increase our frequency, which means removing noise, which means healing trauma, which means removing what doesn't serve us, like a balloon rising. We want to be able to cut those weights so it keeps rising. Otherwise, we're constantly pulled back, and then a ceiling forms around us, right? It becomes more and more difficult to step into the new. But as we rise in this frequency, I really truly believe that everything that we are supposed to receive in this lifetime, which is predetermined before we even came into it by ourselves, probably, right? Well, every single level that we increase in frequency, what we are supposed to receive is already there to meet us.
Mm-hmm.
It's already there, the experience, the people, the idea.
Oh, sorry, my computer is gonna shut off.
You need some
One
batteries there.
second.
Go get the batteries. I can keep talking, boy. You're not talking anyway. So as we increase that frequency, what we are destined to receive is already there. Doesn't mean we can't have alternative paths. Of course we can have alternative paths, but there is only truly one path. It's what we came here to receive. And if we really understand that, then the game is about harmonics. The game is about vibration. The game is doing whatever it is to increase that frequency. So when we move back to understanding how neuroscience works and the brain and the nervous system and brain chemicals and neuroplasticity and all of these things, what it means is that I don't care where someone comes to me. They could be the most spiritual person in the world. Let's go deep down the rabbit hole. We want to talk about quantum physics and science and all of that. Let's go deep down the rabbit hole. We want to talk about neuroscience and the brain and everything. Cool, let's go deep down the rabbit hole. They're all the same thing.
It is. That's something beautiful. That's where I want to like wrap these platforms on. It's like there's no separation. It's the same thing. Quantum physics, spirituality, mindset, working with $1 million companies, like having them. It's all the same thing. It's like, what do you wish to allow your potential to be? Like, why keep hitting ceilings? How much more you can expand? And something you mentioned about when we come here, it's already all laid down for us. Like, we chose what we want to expand on. So is it that what you try to do, like being that missing piece on, okay, this is your potential. This is what you came here to expand in frequency, in vibration, in whatever it is, in business, in life, relationships. How can we allow that more into our lives? Are you ready to receive more of that?
Yes.
Is it like that?
Yes. Yeah, you're good. Wrapped it all up. I could have just asked you to say it for me. You know? And you said it clearer. But yeah, it's like it's unlocking our pure potential, right? And in quantum physics, they talk about what? An infinite super pure potentiality. And I really believe that's the case with ourselves. And in every aspect, it's unlocking what's already inside of us. And that sounds real cheesy to even say, to be honest. It really does. But it's the truth. It's just been butcherized by people who are marketers selling products and services who aren't real coaches and aren't really connected to themselves. And that's the same with the coaching industry. It's been flooded by marketers who are damaging entrepreneurs and people who are looking for real answers. Because they come to people like yourself, Nikki, who are very vulnerable, they're open, they want something. But there's so many charlatans and douchebags out there that they don't really know what they're doing. And like I say, they can only see what they can see. They're limited, right? So they think they're experts. They think they're experts. But I always say this, right? I'm taking it to an extreme example. I like extreme things. So it's like one of these coaches, and I love it that the coaching industry is blowing up. I just don't love it who's in the coaching industry. Remember, I've done this for 19 years. So it's like, okay, well, what do you do to the coach? Do I do this? I specialize in, or I niche or niche in these things. Awesome. Who do you work with? CEOs and founders. Beautiful. What do you charge? Wow, that's a lot of money. You charge a lot of money. Yeah, well, I specialize in this and I do this. Okay, cool. Let me ask you a question. What happens if that founder or CEO walked into your digital office or office that day and was suicidal? Do you know what to do? They're like, what? Every time. They're like, what? Do you know what to do if that person came in front of you and was suicidal, well, no. I specialize in this niche with CEOs. What the fuck are you charging those prices for?
Yeah.
Because you aren't at that level. You're not there, right? And everybody, like in sports, right? Say you're a sprinter. Everybody would want to win that gold medal at the Olympics, right? If you were a sprinter, that would be your thing, right? That'd be your thing, winning that gold medal. Cool, beautiful goal. And if you hung around with people that you were the best at running around, then you would think you're really good. And then you'd put yourself around somebody who was at an Olympic gold medal level. Where are you coming in that race? You're coming so far behind. So far behind them. Why? Does it mean you don't have the same skills? Well, not yet. Well, you might. Does it mean that you don't have the same desire or drive? Well, maybe. Right? I get it. But you don't have the wisdom. You don't have the experience. You haven't put yourself through the roller coaster of thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that have led that person up being able to perform, even if they didn't sleep, even if they were injured, even if the past year they had a disease or COVID, right? Yeah. They would perform on that day because of their wisdom. Wisdom only comes through experience, and experience only comes from time. So now that I'm old, right? I have old in what comparison, right? But I tease, but I feel like I'm like 8 years old. But it's like it's
the sweet spot, being like that inner child, but with the wisdom and the sharpness, right? That's the sweet spot.
That's the goal, right? But hopefully people understand that. So what I'm trying to say to everyone out there, be kind on yourself. Realize where you're at. Don't create identity around anything, right? Understand that beliefs aren't real. They're just the information we hold true right now until we get more information, right? So don't limit yourself. Don't put yourself in boxes. And also don't create identity thinking you're spiritual or this or this or this, because it's all the same damn thing to get to where we want to go. And that's already been predetermined. So something Ramdas said, and I love this quote, and I've listened to thousands of hours of Ramdas. And Ramdas said a beautiful statement. We are all just walking each other home.
Beautiful.
That's what we're doing. However you want to do it. Doesn't matter, right? We're just helping each other to walk each other to unlock their pure potential so they can be happy, successful, and truly create a ripple in the world that they came to create. That's it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Heart expansion right now. I feel it. You have such a beautiful energy. Like, wow, so aligned. Thank you so much. And to add on that, that's why people, situations, opportunities, relationships all come when they have to come, because we're walking each other home. So it's kind of like a mirror, like showing you where are your blocks, where are the distortions, where can you unlock the next thing. And it's like a service to each other. It's just beautiful. Yeah.
I love that. And yeah, everything's a mirror, man. Everything's a mirror. And it really, really is. And everything's like you spoke about probably a million times before, but synchronicity is such a strange thing, right? Like everyone in your life that you loved, there was a moment before you met them that you didn't know they existed. Everything that you're living in your life, in every aspect, there was a moment before you received it that you didn't even know it existed. That's the point, right? It's like, it's a weird ride. It's because it's just like a weird ride, you know? My friend told me, yeah, it's just a strange thing, and things go wrong, and these days I just go, that's funny. You know what I mean? Even the chaos that's going on in the world right now, you know? And there's a lot of chaos, and I travel and I see these things. I've been in like 6 different countries over this COVID time, where most people have just stayed in the same little place. I traveled. Yeah, it's wild. I can tell many stories about that. But it's like, but there's more chaos, and there might be more chaos coming. But I'm so up for the chaos.
Right? It's fun. Once you
Right.
have the proper tools and experience and wisdom and how to deal with the nervous system, then it's fun. If you don't have that,
Right.
it's roadie.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, that's true. Though that's probably true. That's maybe why I find it fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going to happen, and like I don't even know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow.
That's the beauty of it, no? Like, not
Right?
knowing what's going to happen. And then why not give your all and your full potential every moment and keep exploring and expanding? Like, that was wonderful. Imagine you wouldn't have taken that plane and gone to LA with borrowed money and go to that seminar. That's a bold move, and it changed everything, you know?
Everything. It changed everything. And you know what was crazy? I remember there's just. I know we've got to wrap it up in a second because
Yeah.
I do so. Yeah, but so it's like I remember it took taking like leaps of faith, right? Leaps of faith through intuition. Again, that's what got me to Australia. That's what got me to New Zealand. That's what got me to LA to that 5-day seminar. And the crazy thing is I flew in. I remember this distinctively. I flew in. I didn't get into that seminar or into LA till I think it was 10 o'clock the night before the seminar from LA and from New Zealand because it's a pretty long flight. I was the first person signing in at 5:30 in the morning the next day. The first person. I was the first person who was front row center. I was also the first person on the microphone. And that's sort of like 2,000-3,000 people in the seminar. I was the first person on that microphone. Why? Because I wanted it.
You wanted it. Yeah.
I wanted it. And I knew it was right because I was guided. So I just went with the flow. As we get older, what happens is we can resist things because we get in our little comfort zones. But like when a kid doesn't resist anything. They just go and do it.
That's
Right?
beautiful.
It's only our own BS that gets in the way. And that might be a good place to end this today.
Yes. Let's end it there. We can go for days
Okay.
on getting your own BS and follow your heart, follow that intuition and just and then put yourself on a box. That's also a beautiful one.
Yeah, exactly.